The chassis and interior are now finished and all put together. The body had enough time to cure, so it was time to move on and finish this thing off. Now firstly, some of the chrome parts had some really weird parts where the sprues were molded onto them, so I needed to fix that. I decided not to go with a chromey finish on these parts. I could have just done that with some alkyd chrome, but to finish this custom look off, I just decided to clean them up and move on to painting them in a different color. So after cleaning them up, I removed the chrome with some of my oven cleaner. I have a video on my channel how I did that a couple of years ago, and then moved on to just priming all the parts and applying some color and finishing it with some high gloss clear. After finishing that final coat of clear, I just set all those parts aside to dry for a while and moved on to painting the inside of the cab and truck bed with some black paint. After finishing that black paint off, I just moved on to applying some bare metal foil on all the window trim front and rear. With the window trim now chrome, I could glue in the front windshield, then paint those window visors that I did not paint earlier on in some flat black to finish the inside of the cab off. I had mentioned during the unboxing of this kit that I had some wood for the truck bed, but I didn't really have enough for both sides, so I decided to do the underside first and maybe finish that other side off later. But in the end, I didn't really want to finish that other side off later as I didn't have enough wood, and that decal actually looked pretty damn good in my opinion. Now maybe in the future I will finish that off, but for now I'm just going to go with some of these wood slats on the underneath and just assemble the entire model, and the other side will be finished with the decal. The bed and step side could now be glued onto the chassis, and then I could also glue that interior on as well. I tried fitting the cab to the chassis and on top of that interior, but it didn't really want to fit, so I had to trim a small part of the dashboard on both sides. When that was all trimmed, it fit up nicely. The head and tail light buckets were painted with some chrome paint from a monochrome paint pen to give it a nice big and good reflection on the inside, and then the lenses could be glued in place. The indicators on the front were painted with a orange permanent marker. Just on top of that gunmetal finish I painted earlier to keep them a bit darker and give them a bit of a smoked look and blend in a bit better with the rest of the trim. With that all said and done, a lot more of the parts could be glued in place from all that trim that I painted earlier. I laid down a bit of the decal setting solution and then applied a couple of decals on top of it. After gently putting the decals in position, I moved on to gently removing all of the decal moisture from underneath with a cotton swab. I had originally planned to go with some nice lowrider multi-spoke wheels, but after just test fitting them in the end, it didn't really look the way I wanted it to look. So I took out some Skill Production wheels after all, then just primed them quickly with some primer from Tamiya in a spray can and painted them in a light gunmetal from Tamiya as well. With that all said and done, I gave them a little time to dry up and then glued them in place. The front didn't really need any adjustment to the offset whatsoever, so I just glued the wheel into the rim and then glued that assembly onto the brake disc itself, just applying a bit of glue on the disc and then just putting them together. On the rear it was pretty much just as easy. This wheel set came with a wheel mounting system from Scale Production, which you can also buy separately, which makes it a lot easier in some cases to mount wheels. In this case, I just needed a bit of an offset, so I added a spacer in between, sanded both of the sides a bit flush, and also gave it a bit of a bite for the glue, then glued that all together. Some Foose decals were added to the centers of the wheels and also onto the brake calipers, and this build is finished.